Good evening, everyone. It is 7:03, and we're calling tonight's meeting of the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission to order. So we'll begin with roll call. Commissioner Bryan.
Here.
And then Commissioner Dozer.
Here.
Commissioner Miller is absent. Commissioner Palzer here. And then Commissioner Redmond.
Here.
Excellent. That takes us to approval of the agenda. If we could take a look at, are there any additions or changes to the agenda as submitted?
Madam Chair, no staff changes.
All right, thank you. So if there's no changes or additions, if someone would like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motioned by Commissioner Dozer. Seconded by Commissioner Redmond. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So ayes all. That takes us to approval of the minutes from our meeting last month, September 20th, well into the future, 22/11. Any feedback on the meeting minutes from last month, or any corrections that need to be made?
Nope.
Oh, excuse me.
I just it all
I
looked
looked
good to
at
me.
that agenda 3 times. Sorry about that.
No worries. We know what it means. All right.
I'll move to approve minutes.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Redmond to approve the meetings from the September 20th meeting as submitted. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bryan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Don't think we have any opposed, and I think we were the 4 that were here, so no abstentions on that either. So that takes us to new business, the resolution of appreciation for Keith Buttleman. So it did make me a little sad as I was running through our list of names from our last meeting for roll call, and Commissioner Buttleman's name is on there. We're going to miss him on the commission, but staff, did you have an introduction to this one?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. So tonight we are looking at a resolution of appreciation for Keith Buttleman. Keith, as you know, resigned from the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission on September 30th of this year. Keith served on the commission for 5 years and 8 months. He was appointed on January 25th of 2016. So he was here with us for quite a while doing the good work of the commission. And the city likes to show our acknowledgement and appreciation for our citizen volunteers and provide recognition for the members upon their resignation. So tonight we have before you a resolution of appreciation for Keith Buttleman. Your recommendation would go to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Yes, it's a very enthusiastic appreciation. He was our specialist in our Nature Center program reading. He really had a good voice for voiceover work and made that great. But all around, great addition to the commission for sure. So we will miss him quite a bit, and we appreciate his time in the commission. So if anyone has a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation.
I'll move to approve, and I'd just like to comment, maybe we can get him in as like a guest speaker for the announcements. He always had that. He's got that great radio voice.
He really does, yeah. Yeah, agreed. All right, so a motion has been made by Commissioner Redmond. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Dozer. So all in favor of approving the resolution of appreciation for Keith Buttleman, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, so ayes all on that one. Excellent. That takes us to unfinished business, the Renewable Energy Ordinance and Soul Smart certification.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. So this might look familiar to some who have been on the Commission a while, but it's a good recap. It will bring us to the finish line here on our Renewable Energy Ordinance and also serve as a learning tool for our new members. So tonight we're going to be discussing the Renewable Energy Ordinance and Soul Smart certification. So I just put together just some thoughts on these slides here, but in your staff report, we outlined the energy planning the City of Maplewood has been conducting over the last few years. In general, I should say in particular, the city's 2020 comprehensive plan, and I note I say draft on here, that has been approved. So that plan outlines energy policy, and your commission had reviewed that and recommended approval of those goals. And it just kind of outlines that local governments have influence over renewable energy growth. So that is why we are taking a look at this renewable energy ordinance to ensure we're removing barriers and promoting renewable energy where we can. So from that energy planning, the City of Maplewood conducted an ordinance writing back in 2011, and we drafted the Renewable Energy Ordinance. And that ordinance applies to the regulations for renewable energy systems, including wind turbines, solar systems, and geothermal ground source heat pumps. And it includes regulations that are intended to supplement existing zoning ordinances and land use practices and ensure these systems are appropriately designed, sited, and installed. So with that, after we had adopted that renewable energy ordinance, there was the creation of this Soul Smart program. And I have, these slides are from the Metropolitan Council and Soul Smart. They recently gave a presentation to the American Planning Association. So I'm using some of their slides, but it just gives you kind of a understanding of what Soul Smart is. It is a national designation and technical assistance program. It helps governments make it faster, easier, and more affordable for residents and businesses to go solar. And they have certain designations, which I should say, generally speaking, the program increases transparency, it increases an understanding of solar, and it reduces barriers. They have 3 designations. One is bronze, second is silver, and the third is gold. And the City of Maplewood started participating in this in 2016, and we have now since obtained the silver designation level, and I'll go into what that means for the city. But since they started this program, which I believe was 2015, something like that, and thanks for bearing with me there. Sounds like I left my taillights on my car, so I'll have to run out and deal with that. But in the meantime, just wanted to tell you about Soul Smart, and since they started back in, I think it was 2015, they now have 409 cities throughout the country that have participated, and you can see all the designation levels there that have been awarded. They do have 75 unique credits that you work at obtaining to get this designation level, including permitting and inspection, planning and zoning, which would include this renewable energy ordinance that we're discussing right now. And then they have special categories as well. They offer technical assistance, so when we first signed on, their Soul Smart experts took a look at our renewable energy ordinance and gave us advice on removing those barriers. They also are working on a new solar permitting app, and they check in with us, yearly, and then they also, have presentations, workshops, things like that. So it's a good program to be involved in. Here's part of their technical assistance that they offer. They have guides, templates, and resources. And so I've been referring to that. So recently they took a survey of some of the cities that are participating, and what they found. I guess that slide is missing. I apologize for that, but it was talking about, maybe I mixed it up. Here it is. Yes, it was in the wrong spot. What they found was Soul Smart designated communities increased their solar capacity by 69 kilowatt per month on average, which is a 67% increase. The number of installations increased by 62%, or 3 systems per month on average. And across the country, Soul Smart led to approximately 300 to 450 megawatts of additional solar capacity and 12,800 to 19,200 new installations. So you can see it's a successful program in removing those barriers and assisting cities in increasing solar within their municipality. In 2021, just recently, they completed a kind of a review of the program, and I included kind of a detailed analysis of some of the things that they have changed. But this breaks it down. They have less categories, but they do say that if you started under the legacy credits, you can continue on. You know, there's no need, but I think it's good to refer to the new categories and see how, you know, we can make improvements. And again, you don't have to certify yearly. It's not like they check in yearly. Once you're certified at silver, well, as long as you obtain the criteria that you started with, you maintain that silver level. But they do check in yearly with you, and this was one of the check-ins most recently. So here's that Maplewood Soul Smart designation, which is silver, and again, this was in 2016. And at that time, some of the 4 highlights were the creation of an online permitting checklist, increasing transparency for community members and solar installers. And back then in 2016, you know, we would get we would rarely get a solar permit. And now, you know, I meant to, and I will get this information, do an analysis of how many permits we've issued, you know, each year since 2016, and you will see a drastic increase because, of course, it's becoming more cost-effective and maybe easier to access solar. And, of course, our process is it's a streamlined process now. So another item was Soul Smart review of local zoning codes and identification of restrictions that intentionally or unintentionally prohibit solar PV development. So they did that for us back in 2017, and that led to our review of the ordinance in 2018, which I'll go over shortly. Allow solar by right, accessory use in all zones. And back in 2016, when we got this designation, we were one of few cities that actually had a renewable energy ordinance, and you know, many ordinances were just silent on solar at all, but ours specifically identified that, you know, it's a permitted use anywhere. You don't need a conditional use permit, anything like that. And then cross-trained both inspection and permitting staff on solar PV. And this is one area that Soul Smart assists in the training for building inspectors and planners. And then finally, to obtain that gold standard, there's one thing the city of Maplewood has to do. And here's how it's read, or here's how it's, I should say, cited. Post an online statement confirming a 3 business day turnaround time for small rooftop solar PV. So basically, the city of Maplewood would have to guarantee that we could issue basically residential solar permits within 3 business days. And they do offer this Soul Smart, this app that I referred to, and they offer a lot of technical assistance to help guide that. I did check, we have a new building official. He's been on board, well, maybe he's not that new, almost a year. And talked to him about the feasibility of issuing those permits within 3 days, and it's a little bit more complicated than you would think. You know, if it's a straightforward application and all the materials are there, sure, 3 days. But if it's something that comes in and you don't have the structural information, there's information missing, when does that 3 days kick in? And then also in the city of Maplewood, we do not do the electrical inspections. We have a contractor that we hire. So a solar permit in Maplewood would require 2 permits. One would be the solar permit itself, and the second would be the electrical permit. And so they're both reviewed separately. And right now, the solar permits come in, the residential, and, they're stacked amongst all the other permits, which in the spring, you can imagine, you get a lot of deck permits and your garage permits and this and that. And, these things take time to get through. So if we had a streamlined system, it would have to be, pull those permits aside, and those get processed right away somehow. So that's something that we'll be looking at in the next few months here to determine how we can do that and assist in removing that barrier and also achieving the gold level in the SoulSmart. All right, so moving on to the renewable energy ordinance. In 2018, the Environmental Commission looked at the original ordinance based on SoulSmart's recommendations. And here's the 3 things that they really narrowed in on as far as removing barriers. The on and off-site solar. At that time, the ordinance restricted solar energy systems to on-site use. You really couldn't... precluding off-site shared or community solar facilities. Yeah, there was some language in there that it was just focusing on the on-site solar. And then no exemptions provided. We didn't have any exemptions for height, setback, or lot coverage for solar energy systems. And then visibility restrictions and screening requirements. And this had to do with our design review process and how we wanted them to be, at least the freestanding ones, to be screened from routine view from public right-of-ways other than alleys. So during 2018, the Environmental Commission revamped the entire ordinance and recommended approval. And then the ordinance sat. And this was due to, I'm going to blame myself, and we just never got it to the City Council. That was December 2018. And then now, here we are, and SoulSmart just revamped their designation credits, and they checked in on me, and I'm like, I got to get this going. And we just finished a big project, our MRCCA, so the time is now. Let's wrap this up. So in 2021, I asked that they review that draft 2018 ordinance, and the one thing that they outlined was to add some language on inclusion of explicit visibility allowances and restrictions for ground-mounted solar systems that are not community solar gardens. And they gave some examples. Let's say a residential solar system, they had 2 units. They had one in the front yard somehow on a little pergola or something, and one in the backyard. So that's not a community solar garden. It's an actual residential solar garden. And then a solar carport, which we're seeing more of now. So they outlined that as something to look at as we wrap this up. So tonight, we are here to wrap up the renewable energy ordinance and talk about SoulSmart and how we can move forward with our gold designation. So I would appreciate a discussion on particularly the language that I just referred to from SoulSmart, adding this detail. And then once we wrap that up, this will go to the City Council within the next few months. And then what are our next steps for SoulSmart certification? And, there's a lot to discuss on renewable energy, so it would be nice to get a SoulSmart representative here to talk with us. I did ask, but they weren't available for this meeting, so hopefully in the future we can get them here as well. So with that, I will ask you to hold the discussion a moment while I just go deal with my car, and I'll be back shortly. So I will open it up for discussion. Thank you.
All right, we're ready to go. Let's kind of dive into any discussion about, I think if there's any comments on the Soul Smart standards and changes, just some, any discussion about that, but then specifically taking a look at the renewable energy ordinance. What is the official title of that? Yeah, renewable energy ordinance, kind of picking up from that 2018 review, seeing if we had any changes. And I guess maybe I would start with a question just to clarify in the packet. For the ordinance piece, the red corrections, are those corrections that you made just in advance for the meeting tonight, or that's kind of as is how we left it? Like the black is the prior ordinance prior to the 2018 review, and then the red were our changes that the commission made at that time?
Correct.
Okay.
The red are changes the commission had proposed in 2018.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for clarifying. Yeah, I'll kind of throw it out to the commission and just kind of see what you guys are thinking and get some feedback on these items.
So to help guide, they're reviewing Section 4, which is solar energy sources and systems, and that begins on page 10 of that ordinance. And let's see if we can find this area of visibility allowance. Let's see.
Is it section 2? Is that called a section? Trying to catch on to the lettering. I guess it's under item C, placement and design. Number 2, placement, ground mounted solar, what's SES stand for? Solar energy systems?
Correct.
It talks about the 5-foot setback. That's the first place I see anything that's not specifically calling out a community solar garden, right? That's page 12 under, yeah, that would have been easier to start with the page number instead of trying to find the section number. Sorry about that. I was kind of thinking as I was reading through this, just overall, so it was 2018 when we reviewed it, thinking of all the corrections that were made from the previous version of that to open it up to be a little bit more inclusive, to remove barriers as much as we could, and just thinking 3 short years later, I think just the general attitude about solar is changing. I remember kind of a lively discussion about the fact that it's like, no, you can't put this on your property anywhere anyone can see it. Like, it must not be visible to intrude on other people's lives. And, I think at that point we were like, we'd love to see it. We think that that's great. That would be a site that would be welcome to see. And I think, general attitude is changed quite a bit about that just in the short time. So, I don't know, we can just simplify the ordinance to be like, go for it. Like, let's make it happen. I mean, obviously that's an oversimplification, but if we can find a way to work this in to allow for residents, to be creative, to make it fit their property, because I think, in many cases, you've got an existing home, you have the desire to go towards renewable energy, but you maybe have some limitations to work with, limitations in front of you to meet, certain requirements. But I think it would be great if Maplewood residents could work with what they have creatively and come up with a solution that works, and we can remove, issues in front of them. while
Right.
still coming up with a safe system, per the inspection. So Commissioner Redmond?
Sean, so just, I was kind of trying to chase through, because my memory is not good enough to remember this, I'm sorry to admit, but, I mean, I remember it, but I just didn't remember the detail. The three, I think from the 2018 review, the first one and the last one, I think we took care of in our red line edits. Is that also your recollection?
We
So-
took care of all those.
Are the bullet points on this that are on the screen right now? 1 and 3?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said we hit all of them?
Yes.
Okay. What did we do for the exemptions? I wasn't finding that. Do you know where that might be?
For that second bullet point,
Yeah.
boy, when you dust this thing off, you have to refresh everything, so I as well need to.
That's okay.
Well, I tell you what, I wanted to have kind of a solution ready for you, but I ran out of time in creating this packet, and so I thought, hey, we'll just work on it
Yeah,
here.
that's
But,
totally fine.
you can't really find it, so, and it's hard to see
That one I'm
exactly what
having a
they're
hard
saying
time
to.
tracking down.
But I think for this 2021, it's clear they want something in the placement for ground-mounted. So I can dig into that further and refine that language. And then also, I can refresh us on where these particular 3 items, make sure that we did cover that. But I know
Yeah.
we spent a year on this, so
Yeah.
we must have.
Yeah, the first one and the third one I know for sure. I mean, I found them. I can dig them up again here tonight. I just wasn't finding the exemption, but I can look a little bit closer.
Yeah.
For visibility, I think where that ends up coming up is on page 13, item C. The way it currently reads is, ground-mounted community solar gardens shall be screened from view from the public right-of-way and affected properties to the extent possible by setbacks, berming, existing vegetation, landscaping, or a combination thereof. That's what our edited version is. And so that was, I'm just reaffirming, that was what we thought we were going for in 2018, but the 2021 review, they had reviewed our edits? Mm-hmm. Okay. Did they have suggested verbiage beyond their comment?
No.
Okay.
Again, it was short notice, so I can get some proposed language from them.
I wonder if it's as simple as really anywhere that we talk about community solar gardens
Yes.
to include residential, to include community or otherwise, or
Yeah.
something just to make that more inclusive as opposed to calling out community solar gardens. I vaguely remember at that time that there was that tax credit, right? And so we had all of these solar garden companies, getting in touch with Maplewood about, the 20-year easements and whatever. So it seemed like that was the topic. So it made sense that we were talking about those and less individual homeowner, but it might be as simple.
Yeah, I think you're right, that we could just either add a whole bunch of sections for different types of ground mount, or everywhere it says ground mounted, make sure that we could have it say ground. Well, I mean, a community solar can be roof mounted also, but I don't think we care, from an ordinance perspective, I don't think we care. Because in terms of setback and visibility, we don't care what the purpose is, we care where it's at. So we talk about ground mount, because that means something. We talk about roof mounted, that means something. As far as who's using it, who's the off-taker, as far as the ordinance goes, as long as we clarify that community solar is acceptable and maybe ground mounted or roof mounted or other mounted, then I think we're good. So I think you're right, that just everywhere it says ground mounted, either just say ground mounted and then in the definition say ground mounted, which may include, residential, commercial, community, solar, shared. And in fact, rooftop should say the same thing, which may include residential, commercial, community, solar, shared.
Yeah, without,
So define it in the definitions and then just simplify it so it's roof-mounted or ground-mounted.
Yeah, I like that better.
Add something for structure-mounted, including carport.
Yeah.
One issue is for the community solar gardens, if it's over an acre, we were proposing that it be processed as a conditional use permit. So we'd want to separate, that type of ground-mounted
Yeah,
solar.
and would we, what if it were a commercial ground mount over an acre? I'm not, that's probably not very likely, but it's possible.
You mean to add that
I'm just-
commercial in
Yeah,
front of?
would we want to see conditional use? What's the point of conditional use
Well,
in that instance? And
okay, yes. Back in 2018, we had just finished the urban agriculture ordinance, and we had determined that a community garden over an acre would require a conditional use permit. That would allow the city to look at the parking issues, the water hookup. There's things to look at.
Yeah.
Are they removing any trees, things like that.
yeah,
And so we thought, what if you're a resident next to 5 acres and suddenly it's a community, not that we have that much acreage to place a community solar garden, but there are, large tracts of land, like, let's say,
Yeah.
3M wants to do something, there should be some process
Yeah.
to review some things.
what's a conditional use permit fee? So like,
It's about 1,600.
okay. So from that perspective, then I would say over the acre issue, I would think it would just be a ground-mounted system over an acre or larger, or however it was worded, regardless, because, I think if that makes sense to review for community, it would certainly make sense to review for a commercial, or even a residential, if somebody's making a massive array.
It seems to me we also changed our fee structure for community solar gardens, their conditional use permit. We've been so busy these last few years, I'm losing track. But at any rate, we're on the right track here. But the little hiccup is, we don't want to just lump them all communities or ground mount, because we have this community solar garden over an acre that puts a few other regulations on top of that.
And so what I'm proposing or suggesting is, what if it's still rooftop, ground mount, structure mount / carport? I think the easier we term it, the better, and then define in the definitions, clarify that each of those can be residential, commercial, community solar, or shared. And then when it comes to the treatment of what we used to say ground mount of an acre, or excuse me, community solar of an acre or more, now we would just say a ground mounted system of an acre or more. See what I'm saying?
Right. We don't have
Regardless
to
of the
say
use. 'Cause
community solar.
Yeah,
No.
it's likely community solar, but why define it? Let's just say ground mount.
Right, okay, yes.
And then that structure mounted or / carport, I think we would need a section for that, right? I don't think we have anything.
Right, so, well, we do have, ground-mounted solar, so is a carport a ground-mounted solar, or is that a rooftop? What is that?
Yeah. I have maybe we could look into other examples, but I have a tendency of suggesting that we define it as a third thing.
Okay,
Because typically something like that, you're building a little structure for it, but the structure wouldn't exist if it weren't for the array, but it's not really ground mount. I mean, ground mount has a certain, we all kind of know what that looks like. But, when you're putting it over parking, you're going to build a structure, which can still be nice and minimal, but they're different.
It's sort of like how a garden shed is different than a garage.
Yeah.
You know, like a
right.
garage is a garage, you know, you have a building permit to build a garage, but you can buy a shed at Menards and put it in your backyard, sort of. Auxiliary
Yeah.
structure. Yeah.
They gave an example of where a solar carport would work well in Maplewood is our new Wakefield community building and that new parking lot. So placing a, structure over that with solar.
Yeah, the mall, any of the strip mall sorts
Yeah.
of places, all those would be great.
Yeah, anywhere there's sun.
Yeah.
But now, those types of things, you get into, the whole design review process when you're building structures in resident, or commercial, our whole conditional use permit process, a lot of, any type of improvement would, kick in an amendment to the conditional use permit. So, as far as the renewable energy ordinance, I'm not sure how we would need to add additional regulations.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, does it make sense to at least address it in a way that illustrates we understand that they exist and welcome those as ideas? You know what I mean? Like defining it, like up front we can define it. And then would it simply, would our typical building ordinance, if I'm building a super light frame structure over my parking to put solar array on, that's going to trigger standard building permitting process, right?
Right, does it meet the setback requirements for a structure?
Yeah.
I guess we don't really have as an example, I had a solar company come and look at my house for solar, and it wasn't very good because I live by this giant 200-year-old white pine. But there was this little area in the backyard, and he's like, if you ever build something right here, he goes, put some solar on it. And so I was thinking, oh, a pergola would be really cool back there, a solar pergola. So, we don't really have setbacks for a pergola, per se. We would for a shed. So those are things to consider, I guess, as far as regulations go. But yes, we need to define this solar carport, or see what they're calling it now, and then make sure that it's a permitted use, and then
Yes.
it follows whatever other, I guess, design criteria the city has for, regular structures,
Yeah.
in
And-
commercial, that is.
Yeah, and I would advocate two points on that. One would be that we try to define it openly. Leave the definition relatively open, even giving examples. It could be over parking, it could be over greens. Because we actually did we proposed doing something like that with a school, that's a multipurpose, but basically a school in California where they have parking as well as like an outdoor exercise area that they wanted to have screening. So we proposed putting in solar over that. So that's an example of, if we call it a carport, then, it's not very clear. So just the ability of saying a structure for solar. And then the other comment would be, if it's over parking, just asking the question, should it then follow setback requirements for a building? Or is it appropriate and acceptable for it to follow setback requirements for parking? If it's of a certain height, you know what I mean? I don't know what the right answer is, but I think that should be addressed somehow. Sorry, I've now
So,
raising
I'll just pause if you have any more comments, otherwise, this is the area that I will narrow in on for our next meeting, and then I'll also ensure that we covered those 3 items especially the exemptions. But you think they would have caught that in their second review, you know? But, again, it was short notice.
That sounds good. Yeah, I, with short notice, they probably did just a quick pass through, but you know, perhaps with a little bit more time before next month's meeting, maybe there'll be some good resources or information they can point to help us out.
And then I was wondering if you had a chance to look at some of the changes they're proposing in the criteria. They didn't look too drastically different. If anything stood out, something that the city should be looking at. And again, we've already obtained silver, but, you know, we always want to improve on what we're doing.
Is that attachment 2 that you're asking for feedback on? Am I understanding that right?
Correct.
This colorful page.
The updated Soul Smart criteria.
When I was reviewing this prior to our meeting tonight, I, read the part about the 3-day turnaround for permits, and I guess I didn't have a huge issue that we don't have that right now, just because of the timing of everything. I mean, there's supply chain issues, everywhere is short-staffed. It seems like a really difficult time to put additional hurry up and turn a permit around to folks when there's a lot of other things going on at the same time. Not to say that it isn't something that we could work towards in the future, but I guess I wouldn't elevate that to the point of like, we need to get this gold standard, and like we need to meet that level, and we need to do it now. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that. I also, just in general, I was trying to think of like, who is doing the inspections? And as you were talking about in the staff report, if you have 2 separate people doing those inspections, I always think of an inspector really does need to be a specialist, right? Like they're approving, they're making sure they know what to look for. I mean, there's a lot that could be overlooked, that could potentially be risky. I mean, I think as the design of solar systems improves over time and there's just more out there, it'll be a little bit more straightforward, but I'm not sure that we're there at that point. So you would want to give the appropriately trained individuals the adequate time to approve those, so that what you have out there is safe and reliable and ready, versus, well, my neighbor down the street, they put something in and it fell apart within 2 years, so I'm not going to bother with solar. You kind of want to do it right.
What's the current turnaround time?
On a permit, it depends how busy we are. But when I was reviewing residential permits, it ran 3 days to 2 weeks sometimes. It was really busy earlier this spring. And the planners, in the next month, I will explain the process, but I think there's some ways we can streamline. As an example, why is a planner looking at a rooftop solar permit? There's nothing to look at, not looking at setbacks, nothing.
Right.
So why is it sitting in your pile? Could have avoided that altogether. So there's, that's only because this is what we do for all permits. So again, new building official, plus we have just signed on to a new permitting software, which has proven quite challenging to set up and start using. So, I'm not going to walk in and go, hey, try this Soul Smart app, No, I think they're overwhelmed. But getting to the nitty gritty on, who's doing what and why, sometimes it takes kind of an outside group to do that, because the people that are doing it internally have just been doing that just because that's what they do. So there could be some way around at least refining the process, if not this 3-day turnaround.
Yeah,
And back in 2018, I did want to remind you and let our new members know that we took a look at our permitting fees, and at that time we were charging based on the cost of the project for residential and commercial, so if it was I don't know, whatever, $8,000 solar project, it would be based on that price, you know? So the more expensive the project, the more expensive the permit. And in 2018, we came up with a flat fee for residential, so now it's $200. And that's part of the Soul Smart. They say permit fees of $500 or less for residential. So we did receive those credits.
Overall, I agree with your thinking. I mean, if improvements and efficiencies can be made, great, but I don't think that we need to cause a huge, like, this is an unreasonable timeline that we're demanding that you meet by writing it into an ordinance. Doesn't sound like we're there yet. Not that we can't work towards that in the future, but yeah, get used to new software, have, you know, people a little bit more settled in their jobs and get through sort of just this odd time. And maybe that's sometime in the future.
These chairs are tricky.
Are there any other items that you would want some feedback on before we wrap up?
No, but next month, I think we can wrap this up. I'll dive into the ordinance and propose some language for these two items that they're pointing out in the 2021 review, and maybe we can get them to come visit us in November. The one issue that they had was with the Met Council, they're still all working remotely, and so they don't want their staff to attend meetings. Maybe we could Zoom him in.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for your feedback on all of that.
Thanks for bringing this up again. Be good to move it along. Awesome. So that completes agenda item number 6, unfinished business. Number 7 is visitor presentations. We do not have any visitors tonight. We did not add anything for agenda item number 8, commissioner presentations. So that brings us to staff reports, which are oral reports. It's apparently difficult to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. So I have some fun pictures to show you for these staff updates. A couple programs that we did within the last few weeks here. The Harvest Park Native Seed Garden, we had an open house on October 7th, and this is 1.5 acres. It's located at Harvest Park, and the city of Maplewood has an agreement with Urban Roots to allow them to use that land to plant native seeds, and the purpose is then to harvest the seed for restoration projects. And this is apparently year 3 in that project, and they work with the youth group. That's part of Urban Roots' mission, is to work with youth groups, and this is their natural resource group, and they mainly work with East Metro High School kids, and they come out and they do weeding and planting, and they haven't been doing too much harvesting because apparently the plants aren't mature enough to harvest at a large scale, but they will be next year. So during the open house, we had them talk about the history of the garden, how it's in the City of Maplewood's comprehensive plan to have a community garden or some sort of urban agriculture in all 5 of our districts within some public spaces. You know, it's a different type of use for a park. They had to take out 2 softball fields to install this. So we're seeing that our parks are used differently now with different demographics, and the urban farming is just another one of those uses, just like recreation. So they talked about that history, and then they walked around and identified the plants that they had planted and a lot of the weeds that they have to pull. And then they gave us a seed harvesting demonstration, and we all got to take a little baggie and take home a bag full of our own little native seed mix. So it was fun. And I don't think a lot of people in Maplewood know about this park, so we're going to be trying to do a little bit more programming out there next year. So look for more information. The shredding event, I just wanted to update you. We did hold this on October 9th, and here's some data for you. During the 2020 fall shredding only event, we collected 15,600 pounds of paper, and that was after we had to cancel the 2020 spring cleanup event due to COVID-19 and not knowing how to deal with things back then. So there was kind of this pent-up demand, and the one call that I kept getting was, where am I supposed to bring my shredding? So we held this shredding only event. It was easy to do because the residents just had to get out of their car and dump the shredding, and there was no contact. But you can see we held it here at it was at Public Works building just up the hill, but the cars were like wrapped around the City Hall parking lot. It was high demand. And so then we tried again in 2021 spring cleanup to hold it during, the rest of the cleanup event, which is where we collect all the bulky items. And again, because of that pent-up demand and I think our new pricing structure, which was per vehicle rather than per item, and also it was a nice day. We had to turn away about 100 vehicles that day, and there were trailers pulling in with like giant piles of metal and, it was crazy. So the poor people that, were there with just 2 bags of shredding, we couldn't quite accommodate them because that express line wasn't there. So you can see that's reflected in the poundage, that's not even a word. The amount of material that we collected, 3,327 pounds of paper. So then we thought, you know what, it seems to be working better with just a shredding only event. So this Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, we held the event and we collected 14,160 pounds of paper. And we did it at the same time as a household hazardous waste site. Throughout October, Ramsey County has a satellite site where you can bring your household hazardous waste on Friday and Saturday. So that was a kind of a nice compliment. And we had the police out there directing traffic. You can see our mayor was out there bringing some of her shredding material. So it was a good event. You can. Well, yeah, what's in that box? No. So moving on, this is part of our overall fall cleanup campaign, that shredding event. But what's still going on throughout the month of October is the reduced price bulky item collection. So we work with Republic Services, and now they offer this bulky item collection at a 20% discount. It used to be 50%, but in the new contract, this is what we got. But at any rate, it is a discount. So the bulky items range from $8 to $28, but people are always surprised at how much tax is put on, regular trash. It's you have the Ramsey County environmental fee, and then the Minnesota solid waste tax. So it really adds up, but at any rate, can't get around that. But to schedule the bulky item collection, give Republic Services a call at 651-455-8634. And then we are collaborating with Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center. This is the center where all the haulers bring trash from Ramsey and Washington County, and it's burned for energy. And now that the counties own that, they're doing a lot more programming. And this was a pilot project they offered to the city of Maplewood to do curbside collection of mattresses, and they offered it for free. So I don't have the exact number. I can give you that in November to see how many we've taken in, but it seems to be quite a popular event because, it's pretty costly to get rid of a mattress. And this way, we are recycling it. Every piece of the mattress with Second Chance Recycling out of Minneapolis. They put people recently out of jail. They give them jobs, and then every part of the mattress is recycled. I think this would be a good tour at some point to see how they do that. So residents can still schedule that. What you do is you call or send an email, and then they'll contact you, within 24 hours, and schedule that collection on one day in October. And so the best way, they say, is through this email, citycurbside@emerge/mn.org. You leave your name, address, and your telephone number. And I guess it'd be helpful. You can recycle up to 4 mattresses or box springs or combination thereof. And they'll call you back and, again, schedule that. And if you do call that number, 612-332-0664, for some reason they weren't able to change their voicemail, but I did advertise it's extension 6. It's kind of a silent extension, so you listen to the whole original voicemail. You won't hear anything about extension 6. But if you push extension 6 right away, it brings you to the Maplewood specific details. And that's been a little hiccup in this whole plan, but there wasn't much I could do about that. So those are 2 good programs.
I did contact them because we have something to pick up. So I heard back from them within 2 hours, I think, of sending the email. So a very quick response. And one item that they suggested, or one thing that they suggested, was that it sounds like you, or at least they were offering to me, a selection of any day that I chose, but they recommended not having it on your trash and recycling day so that Republic didn't confuse it with trash, a bulky item to pick up that you would then be charged for.
Good.
So any day but your trash and recycling day was open.
Well, good. I'm glad it worked out smoothly for you. I wanted to update you on our solar power hours. We're working, of course, with Midwest Renewable Energy Association to offer these. And so far we've had one event. It was on October 8th, the virtual event. Apparently we had 41 people registered, but 23 attended, but still, that's a lot of people. It was over the lunch hour. And these are free events. You learn the basics of solar, financial benefits. You learn about the solar group buy program. And then you can also schedule a free no-obligation site assessment and cost estimate. And we're holding one more of those events on October 26th at our Nature Center, which I just moved my office to the Nature Center today. So look at that. Things are opening up down there. And that event will be from 6 until 7. And you can register for that event at maplewoodmn.gov/solar power hour. And you're going to want to make it because Ted Redmond is the star speaker.
Well, I don't know about star. But
Local celebrity, Ted Redmond.
Yeah. And I went to a solar power hour a couple of years ago and through work here, and that's when I scheduled that site assessment. But again, got the giant tree.
And just for a small plug on that program, so it's as a group purchase program. The more people that sign up, the cheaper solar gets for everybody. Mm-hmm. And they're already past 230 kilowatts of signed up solar, which is pretty good. That's as much as we did in 2018, and the program's not done yet. So we could very easily pass 250 or maybe even 300.
And they're still offering, of course, the federal incentives. So you'd have it installed in 2022.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's a great year to consider that. So consider attending that event on, what did I say, 26. 26, yeah. All right, moving on. I wanted to let you know that we applied for a Metro Energy Resource Team CERTS grant. They will let us know in December if we have been awarded that. But it's kind of an extension of our Energize Maplewood, Re-Energize Maplewood programs that we've been putting on over the last few years. We received a CERTS grant back in 2017, I think, for the Re-Energize Maplewood. And this particular grant application focuses on historically underserved households is kind of what they wanted to narrow in on as far as energy efficiency and renewable energy opportunities. And here in Maplewood, we do have 3 large manufactured home parks. So our program would focus on those parks to reduce their energy burden. It would include a clean energy for all study. I left off something there, but, and then a municipal operations renewable electricity action plan, and energy efficiency and clean energy materials for Maplewood residents and businesses, and especially those historically underserved communities. So we partnered with Pale Blue Dot to apply for that. So wish us luck, and we'll bring you updates. And then on your agenda here, I think I had the dates wrong for the commissioner interviews. They did hold those on October 11th. There were 3 applicants that they interviewed, and they'll actually appoint those to and fill those 2 commission vacancies next Monday on the 25th. I have got to get my proofreader back. This is not good. But that's it for my staff presentations. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for those. That brings us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Commissioner Dozer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bryan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So with that, it is 8:05 and we're adjourning tonight's meeting. Thanks, everyone.